My daughter called me a crazy old lady for not lending her my credit card. The words left my lips as if someone else were speaking them. After 57 years of life, I never thought my own flesh and blood would hurt me that way. Today, I'm going to tell you something I never thought I would. And if, for a second, this feels familiar to you, I just ask that you leave a like and subscribe. It will help me to keep unburdening myself. It was a Tuesday morning in Chicago, the kind that smells of freshly brewed coffee and the blueberry muffins I always made for breakfast. My small apartment in the Lincoln Park neighborhood woke up with me every day at 6:30, just as the sun began to peek through the windows overlooking Clark Street. The cold tiles under my bare feet reminded me that another day had begun, another day in my routine as a single mother who had dedicated her entire life to one person, my daughter, Lily. The aroma of coffee filled the kitchen while I, in my faded pink cotton robe that was showing its age, slowly stirred my mug, thinking about what I had planned for this special day. In 1 week, it would be my 57th birthday, and I had been saving for months to do something I had dreamed of for a long time. A mother-daughter trip to the Palm Royale Resort and Spa in Palm Springs. A presidential suite with an ocean view, gourmet breakfast included, a luxury spa. Everything I had never allowed myself in my life of sacrifices. My hands, trembling not from age but from excitement, dialed Lily's number. Each ring echoed in my chest like hopeful drum beats. It had been so hard to talk to her lately. Always busy, always in a rush, always with that tone that made it sound like she was doing me a favor by answering. Yeah? Her voice sounded harsh, as if I had interrupted something very important. Lily, my love, good morning. How did you sleep? I asked with that sweetness mothers reserve for their children, no matter how many years go by. Mom, I'm busy. What do you want? The bluntness of her words made me grip my mug tighter. I took a deep breath, feeling the steam from the coffee warm my cheeks, and decided to take a leap of faith into my fantasy. I did something special for us. I booked a whole weekend in Palm Springs, at the most beautiful hotel you can imagine. It's for my birthday, and I thought we could celebrate together, just like old times when you were little and used to tell me I was your best friend. The silence on the other end of the line stretched into an eternity. I could hear my own heart pounding against my ribs, waiting, praying for a response that would light up my world. And then it came, but it wasn't what I expected. Palm Springs? Seriously? Her laugh sounded metallic, cruel. To some boring hotel full of old people? What am I going to do there with you, Mom? The words hit me like an invisible slap. The mug slipped slightly in my damp fingers, spilling a few drops on the wooden table I had bought secondhand when we moved into this apartment so many years ago. Well, I thought it would be nice to spend time together. We've barely talked in months and— Look, Mom, she interrupted me with that hardness she had developed since she moved out. I don't want to sound cruel, but you're delusional. Stop acting like everything revolves around you. You're a crazy, controlling old woman, and you're alone because it's your own damn fault. Crazy. Controlling. Alone because it was my own fault. Each word stabbed my soul like an icy needle. I felt the blood drain from my face. My legs weaken as I clung to the edge of the kitchen table. The world blurred, as if I were seeing everything through a glass fogged by the tears that were fighting to escape. The only thing I need from you, Lily continued with a coldness I had never known in her, is for you to lend me your credit card for the trip to Cancun with my friends. Now that would be useful. But please just live out your old age in peace and stop dragging me into your ridiculous plans. That card, my voice came out broken, barely a whisper, is for emergencies, honey. You know my Social Security barely covers my expenses and— Well, then use it to pay for a nurse because I'm not taking care of you when you end up in some home, she screamed. And then the sharp click of the phone hanging up echoed in my ear like a gunshot. I stood there in my kitchen, the phone still pressed to my ear, trembling from head to toe. The coffee had grown cold in my hands, but I felt nothing but an immense emptiness gnawing at me from the inside. I looked around my small home. Photos of Lily from infancy to her current 28 years adorned every corner. The drawings she had given me in elementary school were still stuck to the refrigerator with worn-out magnets. The blanket I had knitted for her now covered the sofa where we used to snuggle and watch movies. All that love, all those sacrifices. All those years working double shifts as a cashier at the neighborhood Target so she could go to college, so she could have nice clothes, so she would never lack for anything. And now I was a crazy old lady? I vividly remembered selling my mother's pearl necklace, the only valuable memory I had of her, to pay for Lily's study abroad trip to London when she was 22. I remembered the nights I went without dinner so she could have meat, the worn-out shoes I kept wearing for years while I bought her the latest Nikes. I remembered every "I love you, Mommy," she whispered when she was little. Every hug she gave me when I came home tired from work. Every time she told me I was the best mother in the world. When had it all broken? When had I started to be a burden instead of her refuge? I sank into the kitchen chair, the same one where I had helped Lily with her homework for years, where we had eaten breakfast together every morning before she left for high school. The tears finally found their way, sliding silently down my cheeks as my mind filled with memories that now hurt like open wounds. How had I gotten here? How had the little girl who used to say, "Mommy, when I grow up, I want to be just like you," turned into this stranger who spoke to me with such contempt? I closed my eyes and transported myself to that February day in 2018, when Lily showed up at my door, sobbing her heart out. She was 23 then, had just graduated from college, and her long-term boyfriend had left her for a younger girl. She threw herself into my arms like she did when she was little, soaking my sweater with her tears. "Mom, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't have a job. I don't have money for my apartment's rent. I have nothing," she sobbed against my shoulder. Without a second's hesitation, I took my savings out of the lockbox I kept under my bed. $5,000 I had been saving for 3 years by working extra hours, money I had set aside to fix the leaky roof and replace the fridge that barely stayed cold. I gave it all to her. "Here, my love, it's yours. So you can start over," I told her, stroking her brown hair that smelled of the expensive shampoo she always bought. "I'll pay you back, Mommy, I swear. As soon as I find a job, everything will change," she promised, wiping her tears with the back of her hand. She never paid back a single dollar, and when, months later, I gently reminded her that I needed the money for the house repairs, she looked at me with annoyance and said, "Mom, are you seriously going to charge me for helping your own daughter? That's what mothers do." I fell silent, as always, but that wasn't all. In 2019, when she landed her first job at a marketing agency, she came over one afternoon, beaming with happiness, with a proposal that made my heart swell. "Mom, I've been invited to a seminar in Miami. It's an incredible opportunity for my career, but it costs $2,000, and I don't have it." Again, without asking what it was exactly for, without asking for guarantees, without even thinking twice, I gave her what she asked. This time, I had to take out a personal loan from the bank, committing my already meager Social Security income for 6 months. "You're the best mom in the world," she said, giving me a quick kiss on the cheek before running off to pack her suitcase. When she returned from Miami, she didn't talk about the seminar. Instead, she posted photos on Instagram from expensive restaurants, wearing dresses that cost more than my monthly rent, showing off her vacation with friends in 5-star hotels. The seminar had been a lie. She had used my money to go party. When I gently confronted her about it, she pretended not to understand what I was talking about. "Mom, I told you I was going to Miami for work. If I relaxed a little afterward, what's the problem? You're always trying to control everything I do." And I, like the fool I was, apologized. I told her she was right, that I shouldn't meddle in her affairs. Last year had been even worse. Lily arrived on a Sunday night, with that calculated smile she had perfected for asking for favors. She brought a bottle of cheap wine and some flowers that she had surely bought at the gas station on the corner. "Mommy, guess what? I've decided to move out on my own. It's time I had my independence," she announced while pouring the wine into the good glasses, the ones I saved for special occasions. I was so thrilled. My daughter was finally going to fly on her own wings. I was so proud. "And you've already found a place?" I asked, feeling a mix of sadness and maternal pride. "Yes, I found a beautiful one in Wicker Park, but I need the security deposit and the first couple of months' rent." She paused theatrically, swirling the wine in her glass. "It's $4,000 in total. $4,000 I didn't have. $4,000 that meant completely emptying my savings account and being left without the safety net that every older person needs. Lily, honey, that amount, it's a lot of money. I don't know if I can— Mom? She interrupted, her tone changing completely. I thought you'd be happy to see me become independent, but I see you'd rather keep me here, controlling me, like you always have. The manipulation was so subtle, so perfect, that I didn't realize it until much later. She made me feel guilty for not being able to give her everything she asked for, as if it were my obligation to finance her new life, while I became increasingly lonely and poorer. In the end, I got the money by selling the engagement ring her father had given me, the only thing I kept from that young love that had vanished when Lily was just a baby. A ring that held incalculable sentimental value for me, but that she didn't even know existed. "You're the best, Mom!" she shouted from the door as she left with the check in her hand. "I promise this is an investment in our future. You'll see, everything is going to change." That was the last time she had truly hugged me. Over the following months, our conversations dwindled to sporadic calls where she would superficially tell me about her new life. Her job was going well. She had met interesting people, she was dating a guy, but she never invited me to see her new home. She never included me in her plans. She never mentioned paying me back. And when I timidly suggested we could meet for lunch or go to the movies like we used to, she always had a perfect excuse. "Oh, Mom, I'm super swamped with work. This weekend I have plans with the girls. I'm really tired. I need to rest." Little by little, I had become a nuisance in the life of the person for whom I had sacrificed absolutely everything. There, sitting in my kitchen, with the phone still in my hand and the echo of her cruel words ringing in my ears, I began to understand the terrible truth. I wasn't a mother. I was an ATM. I wasn't a confidant. I was a resource. I wasn't her family. I was her moral obligation, that inconvenient person you have to put up with because society says you must respect your parents. I looked around and, for the first time, saw my home with new eyes. The walls had needed a coat of paint for years, but I never had the money because I was always giving it to Lily. The refrigerator made strange noises and sometimes shut off on its own, but I kept postponing its repair because my daughter's needs had always been more urgent than mine. My clothes were old and faded, but why buy something new if no one saw me, if no one valued me? I had become a shadow of myself, a woman who existed solely to meet the demands of someone who saw me as an annoyance. The worst discovery came when I opened my phone and reviewed our conversations from the last few months. Chat after chat, message after message. The same dynamic repeated itself over and over. She asking, me giving. She demanding, me apologizing. She judging me justifying my limitations. When was the last time she had asked me how I was? When was the last time she had worried about my health, my loneliness, my dreams? When was the last time she treated me like a person and not a disposable resource? I couldn't remember. And that realization broke my heart in a way no insult ever could. The following days passed in a strange haze, as if I were living someone else's life. I woke up each morning hoping it had all been a nightmare, that Lily would call to apologize, that she would tell me it was all a misunderstanding, but my phone remained silent, mocking my naivety from the nightstand. On Wednesday afternoon, while organizing my papers to pay the monthly bills, I found something that made me tremble. Our last WhatsApp conversation from 3 weeks ago. I had texted her to tell her I'd had a doctor's appointment because I'd been having some worrying dizzy spells. "Honey, I went to the doctor today. He said my blood pressure is very high and I need to get some tests done. I'm a little scared. Could you come with me next week?" Lily's reply arrived 6 hours later. "Okay, take care." 3 words. For her mother's health, for my fears, for my need for company at a vulnerable moment. But I remembered with crystal clarity that on that same day, just an hour after my message, she had posted an Instagram story showing off her new manicure, with the caption, "Self-care is the best care." She had time to get her nails done, to photograph them, to write motivational phrases. But she didn't have time to ask her mother how she felt after a worrying doctor's appointment. I kept scrolling through our conversations with a mix of fascination and horror. like someone who can't look away from a car crash. Every exchange showed a pattern I had been refusing to see for years. In January, when I texted her excitedly because I'd gotten a small increase in my Social Security benefits. "Lily, guess what? My benefits went up by $50 a month. It's not much, but now I can afford to go to the physical therapist for my back. I'm so happy." Her response: "That's great. Hey, can you Venmo me some money? I have to pay the electric bill and I forgot." Not a word of congratulations. Not a question about my back. Just a hand held out, asking for money I hadn't even received yet. In December, when I told her I had fallen on the building's front steps and hurt my knee. "Honey, I fell yesterday coming down the stairs. My knee hurts a lot and I can barely walk. The doorman helped me get upstairs." "Oh no, Mom. Be more careful. Hey, did you see I was tagged in some photos from my company's Christmas party? I look so good." Not one question about how I was feeling. Not an offer to come see me. Not even a suggestion to see a doctor. Just an immediate pivot back to herself. In October, when I texted her that I was feeling very lonely and missed our talks. "Lily, my love, I know you're busy with your new life, but I wish we could talk more often. I feel very alone in this apartment sometimes. Mom, don't be so dramatic. You need to make friends. Sign up for activities. You can't depend on me for everything." Dramatic? For missing my only daughter? For needing human connection after dedicating my entire life to raising her? Every message I reread was like a slap in the face from the past. How had I been so blind? How had I interpreted what was clearly absolute indifference to my well-being as independent character? On Thursday, I decided to run a test. A horrible but necessary test. I sent her a made-up message. "Lily, I'm at the hospital. I fainted on the street and an ambulance brought me here. I'm scared." I waited. 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. Finally, at 11 p.m., she responded, "Are you okay? I can't come now. I have an important work dinner tomorrow and I need to rest." A work dinner was more important than her mother in the hospital. I wrote back immediately. "It was a lie. I just wanted to see if you cared about me." Her response came like a dagger. "Mom, that's psychological manipulation. That's really messed up of you. Don't ever do that to me again." Psychological manipulation? I, who had lied once in my life to test her love, was the manipulator. But she, who had lied about seminars, about financial needs, about her affection for years, was the victim. I couldn't sleep that night. I stayed awake until dawn, pacing my small apartment like a lost soul, seeing with new eyes every corner that spoke of my sacrifice and her ingratitude. The bookshelf where I kept all her books from school and college, books I had bought one by one, sometimes choosing between eating meat or buying her the textbook she needed. The wall where her diplomas hung, academic achievements I had financed by working double shifts at the supermarket, coming home with swollen feet and an aching back. The closet in my bedroom where I still kept the clothes she had left behind when she moved out. Expensive clothes I had given her for her birthdays while I continued to wear the same clothes for years. Her designer dresses hung there like ghosts of a daughter who perhaps had never truly existed. At least not the loving, grateful daughter I thought I had been raising. On Friday morning, as I drank my coffee alone at the kitchen table, I realized something terrifying. I couldn't remember the last time Lily had given me a gift. Not for my birthday, not for Christmas, not for Mother's Day. She always had perfect excuses. She was broke, she had been too busy, she had forgotten but would make it up to me later. Meanwhile, I had never forgotten a single important date in her life. Even when money was tight, I always found a way to buy her something special, to make her feel loved and celebrated. But when was the last time she had done anything at all, to make me feel loved? The answer hit me like a sledgehammer. Never. At least not since she had become an adult. I then remembered a conversation we had the previous year, when I turned 56. I had spent the day completely alone, waiting for a call, a text, a visit. Nothing came. The next day, when I finally texted her to say I had been very sad to spend my birthday in solitude, her response had been chilling. "Mom, birthdays are for kids. You're an adult. You don't need to be celebrated. Besides, if you wanted to celebrate, you could have organized something yourself." Organize my own birthday? With whom? With the friends I had lost over years of dedicating myself exclusively to her? With the family I barely had because I had moved to Chicago to give her better educational opportunities? I had been left alone in the world for her. And now she was throwing that loneliness in my face as if it were my fault, as if it had been a selfish choice instead of a maternal sacrifice. On Saturday, sitting on a bench in the park on Webster Avenue where I used to take her to play when she was little, I watched other mothers with their young children. I saw them pushing swings, wiping noses, comforting tears, sharing snacks. I saw all that unconditional love I had given for years, and I wondered if any of those mothers would end up like me, alone, despised, treated like a nuisance by the person who had been the center of their universe. One of the mothers, a woman my age who seemed to be a grandmother, sat down next to me while her granddaughter played on the swings. "Are you here to see the grandkids too?" she asked with a kind smile. "No," I replied with a sadness I couldn't hide. "Just remembering when my daughter was little. Does she live far?" she asked with genuine curiosity. "No, she lives here in Chicago." But I didn't know how to continue without bursting into tears. The woman seemed to understand without needing an explanation. She placed her wrinkled hand on mine and said something that would stay with me for days. "Sometimes, dear, love isn't enough. Sometimes we give so much that we teach our children how to take instead of how to give. And when they realize they can live without us, but we can't live without them, the power is imbalanced forever." Her words were a painful epiphany. I had raised a daughter who had learned to take without giving, to receive without thanking, to exist without considering the emotional cost her indifference had on the person who had raised her. And the worst part was that, deep in my heart, a part of me was still hoping she would change, that one day she would wake up and realize what she had in me. I was still clinging to the fantasy that the sweet, affectionate little girl she once was still existed somewhere inside the cold, selfish woman she had become. On Sunday morning, I woke up with a strange sense of determination. For the first time in weeks, I didn't get up thinking about Lily, about what I could do to repair our relationship, about how I could prove I deserved her love. Instead, I thought about myself, about what I wanted, about what I deserved. I decided to do something I hadn't done in years: go to the Maxwell Street Market alone. We used to go on Sundays when Lily was little. It was our tradition. We would wander from stall to stall, buy hot dogs, look for hidden treasures among antiques and secondhand clothes. But when she became a teenager, she started saying the market was tacky and for poor people, so I stopped going to avoid making her uncomfortable. Now, walking through the bustling market, breathing in the fresh Chicago morning air and listening to the chatter of the vendors, I realized how much I had missed this part of myself, the woman I was before I became solely Lily's mom. I was admiring some vintage earrings at a stall when my phone rang. My heart raced when I saw Lily's name on the screen. For a moment, that foolish hope I had been trying to bury for days bloomed again. Maybe she had realized how cruel she had been. Maybe she had reflected and wanted to apologize. "Hello?" I answered, trying to sound casual. "Mom, I need to talk to you." Her voice sounded different, softer, but there was something calculated in her tone that put me on alert. "I'm listening, honey. Look, I've been thinking about what happened on Tuesday. Maybe I was a little hard on you." She paused, and I interpreted it as remorse. I know I get stressed with work and everything. My heart started beating faster. Was it possible she was apologizing? That she recognized how much she had hurt me? "Lily, I've been thinking about that trip you mentioned. To Palm Springs, right?" she continued, interrupting me gently. Maybe it's not such a bad idea after all. The illusion washed over me again like a warm wave. My daughter had come to her senses. She wanted to spend time with me. She wanted to celebrate my birthday together. "Really? You'd like to come with me?" I asked, feeling hope make my voice tremble. "Yeah, I think it could be fun, but I have one tiny condition." Of course, there were always conditions with Lily, but at that moment, I was so desperate to get my daughter back that I would have agreed to anything. "Tell me, my love, whatever you need." Well, it turns out my friends and I had planned that trip to Cancun for the same weekend. You know, the one I told you about. And now I don't know what to do because I don't want to bail on them, but I also want to be with you for your birthday. A knot formed in my stomach. I knew that tone. I had heard it 1,000 times before when she wanted something from me. And what do you propose? I asked, although I already sensed where this was going. Well, I thought maybe you could lend me the credit card for the Cancun trip. And then, when I get back, we could do our trip to Palm Springs. That way, we both win. The world stopped around me. The sounds of the market fell silent. People kept walking, but I stood frozen in the middle of the crowd, holding the phone as if it were a bomb about to explode. You want me to pay for a trip with your friends instead of celebrating my birthday with me? I asked, with a calmness I didn't know I possessed. It's not like that, Mom. Don't be so dramatic. It would be like an investment in our relationship. I relax, clear my head, and then I can fully enjoy our time together. The word investment echoed in my head like a slap. An investment. That's what I was to her. A source of funding for her happiness. And what if I don't have the money to lend you? I asked, though I knew the answer. Oh, Mom, you always have money saved for emergencies. And this is a family emergency, isn't it? The emergency of our relationship. There it was. The perfect manipulation. Turning my refusal into the problem, making my lack of resources the obstacle to our reconciliation. Lily, I booked that trip thinking about spending time with you, about celebrating my birthday together. I don't understand why— Look, Mom, she interrupted, her voice changing completely, returning to that familiar coldness. Either you help me with this, or we just don't go anywhere. I have my own life, my own plans, my friends. I can't always be available for your last-minute whims. Last-minute whims? A trip I had planned for months, a birthday gift I had been excited about for weeks, was now a last-minute whim. But Lily, it's my birthday, and I'm giving you the chance to celebrate it with me later. But if you're going to be selfish and only think about what you want, without considering that I have needs too, selfish. I, who had sacrificed everything for her, was selfish for wanting to celebrate my birthday with my daughter. In that moment, something inside me broke. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't explosive. It was like when a thread you've been stretching for too long finally snaps. Silent, definitive, irreversible. You know what, Lily? You're right. I am selfish, I said with a tranquility that surprised me. I'm so selfish that for 28 years, I've thought more about your happiness than my own. I'm so selfish that I've worked double shifts to pay for your education, your clothes, your trips, your whims. I'm so selfish that I've sold my few valuables to give you money every time you've needed it. Mom, don't be so dramatic. I'm not finished, I continued, feeling a strength I hadn't known in years. I'm so selfish that I've spent my last 3 birthdays alone because you were too busy to call me. I'm so selfish that when I fell and hurt my knee, you didn't even bother to ask how I was. Here you go again with your guilt trips. They're not guilt trips, Lily. They're facts. And the fact is, I am not lending you my credit card. And the fact is, I am going to Palm Springs alone. And the fact is, if that seems selfish to you, then that's what I am. The silence on the other end was deafening. I could hear her breathing, feel her shock. I had never said no to her. I had never stood up to her like this. Are you seriously doing this to me? She finally asked, her voice dripping with a mix of disbelief and manipulation. I'm not doing anything to you, Lily. I am simply choosing to do something for myself for the first time in years. Fine, she finally exploded. Fine, Mom. Go on your old lady trip by yourself. But don't come calling me later complaining that you're lonely, because you've earned that loneliness all by yourself. And she hung up. I stood there in the middle of the Maxwell Street Market, phone in hand, a whirlwind of emotions battling inside my chest. Pain, of course. Disappointment, obviously. But also something new, something I hadn't felt in years. Relief. For the first time in my life, I had said no to Lily. And she hadn't died. I hadn't died. The world hadn't ended. An elderly woman selling jewelry at the next stall approached me with a worried expression. Are you all right, dear? You look a little pale. I think so, I answered, surprised to realize it was true. I think, for the first time in a long time, I am all right. That night, in my quiet apartment, I packed my suitcase for Palm Springs. I folded my clothes carefully, packed my creams, my books, my medications. Every item I placed in the suitcase was a small declaration of independence. I was going to celebrate my birthday alone, and for the first time in years, that prospect didn't fill me with sadness, but with a strange sense of anticipation. Maybe, after all, my own company would be better than the company of someone who only tolerated me when she needed something from me. Before going to bed, I looked at my reflection in the bedroom mirror. I saw a 57-year-old woman, with wrinkles that told stories of other people's worries, with gray hairs that spoke of sleepless nights caring for others, with eyes tired from crying tears no one had ever valued. But I also saw something new in those eyes, a spark that had been dormant for far too long. "Happy early birthday, Carol," I whispered to myself. "For the first time in years, you're going to be the guest of honor at your own celebration." On Tuesday morning, my birthday, I woke up in a completely different way. For the first time in years, I didn't have that heavy feeling in my chest when I opened my eyes. There were no messages from Lily waiting for me, no family drama to solve, no one asking for anything from me. Just me, my freshly brewed coffee, and the suitcase waiting by the door like a promise of freedom. The flight to Palm Springs left at 10 in the morning from O'Hare. As I walked through the terminal with my small roller bag, I watched families saying their goodbyes, couples traveling together, groups of friends laughing on their way to vacation. For a moment, that familiar pang of loneliness tried to take hold, but I pushed it away with a determination that surprised me. On the plane, an elderly couple sat across the aisle from me. He adjusted the blanket over her legs. She brushed crumbs off his shirt after he ate a sandwich. They spoke with the easy complicity of those who had shared decades of life, who had chosen each other again and again despite the passage of time. I watched them with a mix of nostalgia and curiosity. What would it be like to have someone choose you for love and not for convenience? What would it be like to be valued for who you were and not for what you could provide? "First time in the desert?" the woman asked me with a kind smile. "No, but it is my first time alone," I replied, and saying it out loud, the word alone didn't sound as terrible as I had imagined. "Oh, how brave," she said, squeezing her husband's hand. "I'd be scared to travel alone at my age." I was scared too, I admitted. But sometimes the fear of staying the same is greater than the fear of change. The man nodded wisely. "My mother used to say that life begins when you decide to stop living for others and start living for yourself." His words stayed with me for the entire flight. When the plane landed in Palm Springs, I felt like an explorer arriving in unknown territory. Not the territory of California, which I knew, but the territory of my own independence. The taxi that took me to the Palm Royale Resort and Spa wound through the desert landscape, and I had my nose pressed to the window like a child seeing the ocean for the first time. The sun glittered on the swimming pools, the palm trees swayed in the warm breeze, and for the first time in months, I took a deep breath that didn't taste bitter. "Celebrating something special?" asked the taxi driver, a tan man in his 50s. "My birthday," I replied. "I'm 57 today." "Happy birthday! And the family?" The question hit me, as it always did, but this time I didn't feel the need to make excuses or justify Lily's absence. "It's a gift to myself," I said simply. "That's great. My wife always says that women forget about themselves when they have kids." "Good for you for remembering." When I arrived at the hotel, the sight took my breath away. It was exactly as I had pictured it, elegant yet welcoming, with perfectly manicured gardens and a spectacular view of the mountains. At the front desk, a kind young woman handed me my key along with a complimentary bottle of champagne. "It's for your birthday, Ms. Evans. The team wishes you a very special day," she said with a genuine smile. I felt like crying, but not from sadness. It was pure emotion. It had been years since anyone, absolutely anyone, had done something special for my birthday without me asking or organizing it myself. The suite was even more beautiful than the online photos. It had a king-size bed with immaculate linens, a balcony with a mountain view, a marble bathroom with a whirlpool tub, and a table with fresh fruit and a handwritten card. "May you have a memorable birthday, Ms. Evans." I sat on the bed, and for the first time in weeks, I let myself cry. Not from pain, but from relief. I was alone, yes, but it was a chosen solitude, not an imposed one. It was the solitude of freedom, not of abandonment. After showering and putting on a navy blue dress I had bought especially for this trip, the first new dress I had bought for myself in 3 years, I went down to the hotel restaurant. I had booked a table for one, and at first I felt self-conscious seeing all the tables occupied by couples and families. But then I remembered something I had read in a magazine. A woman dining alone isn't waiting for company. She is enjoying her own. I ordered the pan-seared scallops, a glass of Chardonnay from Napa Valley, and for dessert, a chocolate lava cake that the waiter decorated with a small candle without me even asking. "It's for your birthday," explained Michael, the waiter in his 40s who had been especially kind to me. "My mom's been alone since my dad passed, and I always tell her she needs to celebrate herself." I blew out the candle, making a wish that for years had always been the same, that Lily would love me the way I loved her. But this time, my wish was different, that I could love myself the way I deserved. After dinner, I went for a walk along the main strip in Palm Springs. It was a perfect spring evening, with warm temperatures and a gentle breeze. There were couples strolling hand in hand, families with children eating ice cream, groups of friends sitting on patios toasting to life. Instead of feeling envy or sadness, I found myself observing everything with anthropological curiosity, as if I were a scientist studying a species I was just getting to know, the species of happy people. I sat on a bench and took out my phone. I had 3 unread messages. My heart skipped a beat, thinking maybe one was from Lily, that maybe she had remembered my birthday, that maybe she wanted to apologize. The first was from my bank, confirming the hotel charge. The second was from my cell phone company, offering me a promotion. The third was from Susan, my old coworker from Target, wishing me a happy birthday. None from Lily. Instead of sinking into despair, I felt something liberating. For the first time in years, my birthday hadn't depended on whether she remembered or not. I hadn't waited for her call. I hadn't interpreted her silence as a personal failure. It had been a beautiful day on its own merits, not because of anyone else's validation. That night, in the whirlpool tub in my suite, with the lights of the city twinkling in the distance and the quiet hum of the desert as my soundtrack, I realized something extraordinary. I had spent a full day without thinking about how to make Lily happy. I had thought about what I wanted for dinner, what dress I wanted to wear, what places I wanted to visit the next day. I had made decisions based on my own tastes, my own desires, my own comfort. When was the last time I had done that? I couldn't remember. For years, every decision had been filtered through the question, what will Lily think? Will she like it? Will I embarrass her? Will she get angry? But there, soaking in warm water with aromatic bath salts I had chosen myself, I understood that I had been living as an actress playing the role of the perfect mother instead of living as Carol, the woman. The next day, I did something I hadn't done in decades. I woke up when my body wanted to wake up, not when an alarm clock went off. It was 9:30 in the morning. The sun was streaming softly through the curtains, and for the first time in years, I had nothing scheduled that wasn't exactly what I wanted to do. I had breakfast on my balcony, watching the mountains as I ate croissants with homemade jam and drank my coffee. I read a few pages of a novel I had started and abandoned 1,000 times because I always had more important things to do. After breakfast, I made a spontaneous decision. I canceled my return flight scheduled for that afternoon and decided to stay 2 more days. I called the hotel and asked if I could extend my stay. "Of course, Ms. Evans. Same type of room? The same suite, please. And could you book me a spa appointment for tomorrow? Full body massage, facial, whatever you recommend. It will be our pleasure to arrange everything." When I hung up, I laughed out loud in my room. It was the first completely impulsive and independent decision I had made in years. I hadn't consulted anyone, hadn't asked for permission, hadn't justified the extra expense. I had simply decided I deserved 2 more days of peace, and I had given them to myself. That afternoon, walking through Palm Springs' downtown area, with its mid-century modern architecture and bougainvillea-draped walls, I stumbled upon a small artisan jewelry shop. In the window was a silver necklace with a simple but elegant bird-shaped pendant. I went inside and tried it on. "It looks beautiful on you," the saleswoman said. Is it a gift? Yes, I replied, looking at myself in the small mirror. It's a gift to myself. And for the first time in my adult life, I bought myself a piece of jewelry without feeling guilty, without thinking about the money I could be saving for Lily, without justifying the purchase as a necessity. That night, I dined alone again in the hotel restaurant, but this time I didn't feel self-conscious. I felt free. Michael, the waiter, came over to ask how my day had been. Wonderful, I told him. For the first time in years, truly wonderful. On Thursday morning, as I enjoyed my second cup of coffee on the suite's balcony, my phone began to ring insistently. It was Lily. I looked at the screen without the desperate urgency of before, without that knot in my stomach that each of her calls used to cause. I let it go to voicemail. 5 minutes later, she called again, and then again, and again. Finally, I answered, more out of curiosity than anxiety. Hello? I replied with a calm that surprised me. Finally, you answer. Her voice sounded different, sharper, less controlled. Mom, we need to talk. Urgently. I'm listening. Where are you? I went to your apartment and you're not there. The neighbors said they saw you leave with a suitcase. For the first time in years, Lily had come looking for me without calling first. The irony was almost comical. I'm in Palm Springs celebrating my birthday, like I told you I would. You actually went? Alone? Her tone held a mix of disbelief and something I couldn't immediately identify. Yes, alone. And it's been wonderful. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. I could hear her breathing quicken, as if she were processing information that didn't fit the image she had of me. Mom, I need to see you. There's something very important I have to tell you. More important than my birthday, which you decided not to celebrate with me. Please don't start with that again. It's about Dad. My ex-husband, the man who had abandoned us when Lily was 3 and whom we hadn't heard from in over 2 decades. What about him? He's dead, Mom. I found out yesterday. And, she paused dramatically, he left us an inheritance. I felt a strange vertigo. Not sadness for the death of a man who had been a stranger for more than 20 years, but a surreal sense that the universe was playing a cosmic joke. An inheritance? Yes. He owned property in Scottsdale we didn't know about. A lawyer called me because he had my contact information. We're the only heirs. It's a lot of money, Mom. A lot. And there it was. The reason for her sudden interest in finding me. It wasn't regret for calling me a crazy old lady. It wasn't guilt for my spending my birthday alone. It was money. Come back to Chicago, please. We have to go to Scottsdale together to sign the papers. The lawyer says we could each inherit over $200,000. $200,000. A fortune for someone like me who had spent her entire life pinching pennies. And that's why you're calling me? Because of the inheritance? How can you ask me that? I'm calling you because you're my mother and we have to do this together. Her voice took on that victimized, reproachful tone I knew so well. When exactly did you find out? Yesterday afternoon. Why? Yesterday was my birthday, Lily, and you didn't call me, not even to say happy birthday. But today, when there's money involved, you call me desperately. Mom, don't be so suspicious. I was obviously busy with this lawyer stuff and… You know what? I interrupted, feeling a crystal clear clarity. I'm flying back to Chicago tomorrow. We'll meet on Saturday. But Mom, the lawyer can see us tomorrow if… Saturday, Lily, at my apartment, at 5 in the afternoon. And I hung up. For the first time in the history of our relationship, I had been the one to set the terms. I had been the one who said when and where. I had been the one who hung up first. On Friday morning, before packing my suitcase to return to Chicago, I did one last thing in Palm Springs. I went to a lawyer's office and drafted my will, a simple but crucial document. If anything happened to me, everything I owned, including my share of the inheritance, would be donated to a foundation for battered women. Not because I hated Lily, but because I had understood that money was the only thing she cared about from me. And if that were the case, then she didn't deserve it. On Saturday at 5 o'clock sharp, Lily appeared at my door. She was impeccably dressed in an expensive outfit I hadn't seen before and carried a bouquet of flowers she had likely bought from a street vendor. Mom, happy belated birthday, she said, giving me a kiss on the cheek that felt calculated and cold. Thank you, I replied without emotion. Come in. She sat on the sofa with the familiarity of someone who believes nothing has changed, with the confidence of someone who assumes a small gesture erases all prior damage. How was Palm Springs? She asked with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Transformative. Something in my tone made her smile falter slightly, but she recovered quickly. Well, tell me all about the inheritance, she said, changing the subject to what truly mattered to her. Before that, I want to talk about something more important. More important than $200,000? Much more important. I sat across from her, maintaining a physical distance that symbolized the emotional chasm that had formed between us. Lily, for 28 years, I lived believing you were the most important person in my life, that everything I did made sense because it was for you and about you. Mom, where are you going with this? Let me finish, I said with a firmness that surprised her. I have sacrificed everything for you. My youth, my dreams, my savings, my relationships, my very identity. I laid it all on the altar of your happiness. And I appreciate it. No, you don't. And that's the truth it has taken me 57 years to understand. She shifted uncomfortably on the sofa, as if sensing this conversation wasn't heading where she wanted it to. On Tuesday, you called me a crazy old lady because I wanted to spend my birthday with you. Then you called to ask for money for Cancun, using my affection as a bargaining chip. And now you show up here with gas station flowers because there's an inheritance to split. Mom, you're exaggerating everything. Do you know when the last time was that you asked me how I was? The last time you gave me a gift that wasn't out of obligation? The last time you spent time with me without wanting something in return? Her eyes began to well up with tears she knew exactly when to use. I can't believe you're saying this to me. I'm your daughter. I love you. No, Lily. You love what I can give you. There is a world of difference. I stood up and walked to the bookshelf where I kept the family photos. I picked up one of her when she was 5, where she was hugging me with a genuine childhood smile. This little girl loved me, I said, showing her the photo. But the woman sitting on my sofa only needs me when there's money involved. That's not true, isn't it? Prove it. Tell me one single thing you know about my life right now that doesn't have to do with what I can do for you. Tell me what my fears are, my dreams, my worries. Tell me how I feel living alone in this apartment since you left. The silence that followed was deafening. I saw her searching for an answer she didn't have, because for years she had treated me like a service, not a person. Mom, she started, but I stopped her with a gesture. You don't have to answer, because we both know the truth. I went to my bedroom and took an envelope from my nightstand that I had prepared that morning. Here is the information for the lawyer in Scottsdale, I said, handing her the envelope. You can go alone to claim your share of the inheritance. My share? What about yours? I have renounced mine. Her face completely transformed. The loving daughter mask fell away to reveal the real Lily. Disbelief, panic, and finally, a fury she no longer bothered to hide. Are you insane? How can you renounce $200,000? Easily. I don't need it. I've lived my whole life without your father's money, and I can continue to do so. But it's my inheritance too. It's money for our future. And there was the naked truth. Our future. As if I were an extension of her. As if my money were automatically her money. As if my financial decisions had to be subordinate to her needs. Your future, Lily. Never ours. You are 28 and have a whole life ahead of you. I am 57 and have just realized that I have a life ahead of me too. A life I am going to live for myself. She shot up from the sofa as if she were about to explode, her face red and her fists clenched. You can't do this to me. I'm your daughter. It's my right. Your right is the share that legally belongs to you, nothing more. My share is mine, and I have decided to donate it. Donate it? To whom? To a foundation for battered women. Women who need a new start, who need a chance to rebuild their lives. She stared at me as if she didn't recognize me. As if the woman she had been manipulating for years had transformed into a stranger. This isn't over, she threatened, heading for the door. I'm going to contest it. I'll prove you're not of sound mind. You can try, I replied with a calm that unnerved her even more. But I have a will drawn up by a lawyer in Palm Springs that says the exact opposite. She stopped dead in her tracks. A will? Yes. And it makes it very clear that I am of sound mind, and that all my decisions are fully conscious and voluntary. For the first time in her adult life, Lily had no answer. She had no manipulation to use, no tears to shed, no emotional blackmail to apply. "You're right about one thing," I said as I opened the door. "I am a crazy old lady. Crazy for taking so long to realize that I deserve to be treated with respect and genuine love. Crazy for believing that love could be bought with sacrifices." She left my apartment without another word, and I closed the door with a sense of liberation I had never experienced before. That night, for the first time in 28 years, I went to sleep without worrying if Lily was okay, if she needed anything, if she would ever forgive me. For the first time in decades, I only worried about myself. The next 2 weeks were the strangest, and at the same time, the most liberating of my life. For the first time in decades, there was no family drama to manage, no emotional crises from Lily to solve, no requests for money to consider. There was only silence. A silence that scared me at first, but that slowly became my best companion. On the Monday after our confrontation, while having my morning coffee, I received a call from the lawyer in Scottsdale. Lily had gone to claim her share of the inheritance, and, as he told me with some bewilderment, had asked several times if I could change my mind about renouncing my portion. The young woman seemed very intense, the man told me with professional diplomacy. "Are you completely sure of your decision?" "Completely," I answered without a hint of doubt. "When can I sign the donation to the foundation?" "We can do it this week if you like. It's a considerable amount, Ms. Evans. $200,000 can change a lot of lives." "I hope so." That afternoon, for the first time in years, I didn't stay home waiting for a call that wouldn't come. I dressed with care, put on the necklace I had bought in Palm Springs, and went out to walk around Chicago like a tourist in my own city. I went to Lincoln Park, a park I had visited 1,000 times with Lily when she was little, but hadn't returned to since she moved out. I sat by the pond and watched the families feeding the ducks, the elderly couples strolling slowly, the young people exercising with that infinite energy of someone with their whole life ahead of them. On a nearby bench, a woman about my age was reading a book while sipping coffee from a thermos. Something about her tranquility was magnetic. "Is it any good?" I asked, pointing to the book. "Wonderful," she replied with a smile. "It's about a woman who decides to hike the Appalachian Trail alone in her 60s. And does she make it? She's in the process. Do you like to read?" "I used to. It's been years since I've had time for it." "What a shame. Books are the best company once you learn to enjoy your own solitude." Those words resonated with me for the rest of the day. Once you learn to enjoy your own solitude. Was that what I was doing? Was I learning to enjoy being with myself? The next day, I did something I hadn't done in years. I went to a bookstore, not to buy a gift for Lily or something educational she might need, but for a purely personal pleasure. I spent 2 hours among the shelves, browsing novels, travel books, biographies of women who had done extraordinary things after 50. I left with 4 books and a sense of anticipation I hadn't felt since I was a teenager. I had plans. Plans that included no one but me. On Thursday, while I was reading one of my new books on my balcony, the doorbell rang. For a moment my heart raced, thinking it might be Lily. But it was Susan, my old coworker from Target, with whom I had lost touch after she retired. "Susan?" I said, unable to hide my surprise. "Hi, honey. Can I come in?" "I have something to tell you." I made tea for both of us, and we sat at the kitchen table like old times. "I heard you're not at Target anymore," she said directly. "What happened?" "Layoffs," I replied, and I realized that for the first time, I felt no shame in admitting it. After 18 years, they let me go because my seniority made me too expensive. "Sons of bitches," Susan said bluntly. "Same thing happened to me 3 years ago. That's why I'm here." "What do you mean?" "A group of us, women who lost our jobs after 50, have started a co-op. Cleaning services, elder care, organizing family events. Things we know how to do well because we've been doing them our whole lives." She explained that they had started as 5 desperate women and were now 15, with a growing client wait list. "You know why it works?" she asked, her eyes shining. Because women our age know how to work. We're not thinking about boyfriends or partying or changing jobs every 6 months. We're here to stay and get the job done right. It sounds wonderful, but I don't know if I could. Could what? Carol, you were a checkout supervisor. You handled cash. You dealt with difficult customers. You solved problems under pressure. Are you telling me you can't organize a kid's birthday party or clean an office? She was right. For years I had underestimated myself, had thought my skills were worthless because I didn't have a college degree or an impressive resume, but I knew how to do a lot of things, and I did them well. When do I start? I asked, and hearing my own words, I was surprised by the determination in them. The following Monday, I began my new professional life. My first job was organizing the cleaning for an office in downtown Chicago. A simple, straightforward job, where my experience and work ethic were worth more than my age. My co-op colleagues were women like me, divorced, widowed, mothers whose children had flown the nest, employees discarded by a job market that preferred youth to experience. But together, we were strong. Together, we were a formidable team. Within 2 weeks, I had my own group of regular clients. An elderly couple who needed help with a deep clean of their house. A single mother who needed support organizing her son's birthday party. A small business looking for someone reliable to maintain their offices. For the first time in years, I woke up each morning with a purpose that had nothing to do with solving someone else's problems. I had my own challenges, my own goals, my own sense of accomplishment at the end of the day. But the most profound change wasn't professional, it was personal. One Friday evening, after finishing my work at the office, I decided to go to the movies alone. There was an American indie film I wanted to see, a comedy about a middle-aged woman who decides to change her life. I felt self-conscious buying a ticket for one at first, but then I realized that nobody cared. Nobody found it strange. I was simply a woman who had decided to see a movie. During the film, I laughed so hard that a few people turned to look at me. I laughed with abandon, with freedom, with the laughter of someone who doesn't have to control her emotions so as not to bother anyone else. After the movie, I walked to a nearby bistro and ordered a glass of wine. 1 glass, not 2. 1 glass for me, without having to apologize for the expense, without having to justify the pleasure of having something nice just because I felt like it. As I savored the wine and watched people pass by on the street, I realized something extraordinary. I was enjoying my own company. I wasn't waiting for someone to arrive to complete the moment. I wasn't thinking about what Lily would say if she saw me there alone. I was simply present, with myself, and it was enough. That night, when I got home, I looked around my small apartment with new eyes. I no longer saw the place where I had waited for calls that never came. I saw my sanctuary, my space, my chosen home. I moved some furniture around, put on music I loved, and made a dinner I was craving. I ate slowly, savoring every bite, with no rush to finish and wash the dishes to get on with the usual obligations. Over the following weeks, I started doing things I had never allowed myself. I signed up for a yoga class at the local community center. I started going to a book club where women my age debated novels with the passion of college students. I even bought a secondhand bicycle and rediscovered the pleasure of pedaling through Chicago's parks. One Saturday morning, while having breakfast at a new cafe I'd discovered near my apartment, a young woman approached my table. "Excuse me, are you Carol Evans?" "Yes," I answered, intrigued. "I'm a journalist with the Chicago Tribune. I was told about the donation you made to the women's shelter. It's a very generous amount. Could we talk?" I was stunned. I hadn't expected my donation to get media attention. "I'm not looking for publicity," I told her honestly. "It's not about that. I'm writing a piece on women who make brave decisions after 50. Your story could inspire other people." I agreed to the interview, and a week later, my photo appeared in the newspaper alongside an article titled, "It's Never Too Late to Start Over: Stories of Rebirth After 50. The article told my story without excessive drama, but with honesty. It talked about how I had renounced an inheritance to donate it to women who needed a second chance, how I had started a work co-op with other women my age, and how I had learned to enjoy my own company. The reaction was overwhelming. I received dozens of messages from women who identified with my story, who told me about their own experiences of late-in-life liberation, who thanked me for showing that your 50s aren't the end, but a beginning. One of those women became something unexpected. My first true friend in years. Her name was Patricia. She went by Pat. She was 62, a widow, and had gone through a similar process with her adult children. "It's funny," she told me one day as we had coffee in Lincoln Park. "I thought I had failed as a mother because my kids didn't need me. Now I realize the real success is raising children who can fly on their own, even if it hurts when they do. And what if they don't fly? What if they stay, but only for convenience? Then the failure isn't yours for raising them wrong, but theirs for not learning how to grow up." Her words gave me a peace I didn't know I needed. For the first time, I began to see the situation with Lily not as my personal failure, but as the result of a toxic dynamic that I had participated in, but no longer had to perpetuate. That night, at home, I wrote something I never thought I would write. A letter to myself. "Dear 57-year-old Carol, forgive me for abandoning you for so many years. Forgive me for thinking you were worthless without the validation of others. Forgive me for believing your only function in life was to make people happy who didn't know how to value your sacrifice. From now on, I promise to take care of you as you deserve. I promise to listen to your wishes and respect them. I promise you will never again be last on your own priority list. With love and respect, the 57-year-old Carol who is finally learning to live." 6 months after that life-changing confrontation, I wake up every morning with a feeling it took me 57 years to know. The anticipation of a day that belongs completely to me. This October morning, as the autumn sun streams through my bedroom window, which I've now decorated in colors I love, not the neutral tones I thought were more appropriate, I reflect on the journey with a mix of wonder and gratitude. My apartment is no longer the same. I've rearranged the furniture, bought plants that fill every corner with life, and hung art that I chose myself at the Sunday flea market. The photos of Lily are still there, but they no longer dominate every surface. Now they coexist with pictures of my new friends, of my travels. Yes, I've traveled more in these 6 months than in the last 10 years, of the happy moments I've built by and for myself. The Women's Co-op has become something bigger than any of us imagined. There are 32 of us now, and we have a waiting list that forces us to be selective about the jobs we accept. We've specialized in quality services, leveraging the life experience that the traditional job market scorns, but that our clients value deeply. Yesterday, while organizing a retirement party for a professor who had taught at the same high school for 40 years, I realized something powerful. I am good at what I do, not because someone tells me so, not because someone needs me, but because I have real skills, genuine value, something important to contribute to the world. My bank account, for the first time in decades, has a balance that lets me sleep peacefully. It's not a fortune, but it's mine. Money I earned with my work, my effort, my decisions. Money no one can borrow from me, no one can take for granted, no one can use as a tool for manipulation. Last week, I bought myself something completely unnecessary and wonderful. A camel-colored wool coat I saw in a shop window and instantly fell in love with. It wasn't cheap, but it wasn't extravagant either. The important thing wasn't the price, but the act of buying it. For the first time in my adult life, I spent money on something beautiful for myself without feeling guilty, without justifying the purchase, without thinking if that money could be useful for someone else. I tried it on at home and looked at myself in the mirror for a long time. The woman looking back at me was no longer the overwhelmed, self-sacrificing Carol from 6 months ago. She was an elegant woman, with her shoulders back, her eyes bright, with a smile that needed no one's approval to exist. Pat, who has become my confidant and partner in adventure, recently told me something I can't get out of my head. "Carol, for the first time since I've known you, you seem to be inhabiting your own life instead of being a spectator in the lives of others." She's right. For years, my existence had been an exercise in observation. I watched to see if Lily was happy, if she needed something, if she considered me a good mother. My emotional well-being depended entirely on external indicators I couldn't control. Now, my happiness is my responsibility. and how liberating it is to discover I'm quite good at creating it. The book club has become one of my favorite pleasures. This month we're reading Eat, Pray, Love, and while some of my fellow members think it's a bit too pop for our refined tastes, I find this story of a woman rebuilding herself after a devastating divorce to be profoundly relatable. Happiness is the consequence of personal effort, read Anne, one of the group members, during our last meeting. You don't just happen upon it, you make it happen. Those words echoed in my mind for days. I had spent decades waiting for happiness to come to me from the outside, for Lily to love me enough, for someone to value me enough, for circumstances to align just right to allow me to be happy. Now, I understand that happiness is a daily practice, a series of small and large decisions that build a life worth living, like the decision to take a painting class on Thursday afternoons. Not because I have any special talent. My landscapes are mediocre and my portraits are frankly questionable, but because I discovered there's something deeply meditative in the act of creating something with your hands, of focusing on colors and shapes without thinking about problems or other people's responsibilities. Or like the decision to learn how to use smartphone apps that once seemed too complicated. Now I can order a ride without calling anyone, book a table at a restaurant from my bed, and even video call the friends I've made in the book club when someone can't make it in person. Small independences that add up to a great autonomy. 3 weeks ago, while walking through a gourmet food hall buying ingredients for a dinner I was going to prepare just for myself, shrimp scampi, my favorite dish that I rarely made because Lily didn't like seafood, I ran into Mary, the mother of one of Lily's old high school classmates. "Carol, how are you?" She greeted me with that slightly exaggerated enthusiasm people use when they don't quite know what to say. "How's Lily?" The question that had filled me with anxiety for years now seemed simply irrelevant. "I don't know," I answered honestly. "We haven't spoken in months." "Oh my goodness. Did something happen?" "Yes," I said with a calm that surprised me. "What happened is I decided I deserved to be treated with respect and genuine affection." Mary was left speechless, clearly expecting a more detailed explanation that never came, because I no longer feel the need to justify my decisions to strangers, to explain my private life so others can judge whether I've done the right thing. That night, as I ate my shrimp scampi with a glass of Sauvignon Blanc, I reflected on that conversation. 6 months ago, running into Mary would have plunged me into a days-long depression, made me question all my decisions, and filled me with doubt about whether I was being too hard on Lily. Now I simply thought, I'm glad I could be honest without feeling ashamed. I've heard news of Lily, of course. Chicago is a big city, but circles can be small, and mutual acquaintances eventually bring information. I know she collected her share of the inheritance, that she moved to a more expensive apartment downtown, that she's still working at the same marketing firm. I also know, through Susan, my partner at the co-op, that a month ago, Lily showed up at the Target where we used to work, asking for me. She wanted my new address, my phone number, information on how to contact my mother. Susan, bless her heart, told her she wasn't authorized to give out that information, but if Lily wanted to leave a message, she would pass it along. The message never came. I don't feel resentment toward Lily. I've come to understand that she is who she is. A young woman who learned very early that she could get what she needed by manipulating her mother's emotions. I don't hate her for it. I have simply decided that I will no longer be the object of that manipulation. Sometimes, especially on quiet nights when nostalgia takes hold, I think of the little girl she was, of those genuine moments of connection we shared. Those memories no longer hurt me as they once did. I see them now for what they were, a beautiful phase that ended as all life's phases do. Motherhood, as I had conceived it, was over, and that was okay. In its place, something new had been born. A life of my own, an independent identity, a Carol who existed beyond her maternal function. This Sunday, I will turn 58. I already have plans. Pat and I are going to New Orleans for 3 days. We'll visit the French Quarter, wander through the Garden District, eat Creole food in the Marigny, and stay in a charming little boutique hotel we found online. It's a trip I'm paying for with my own money, that I've planned according to my tastes, that I will take in the company of someone who chose me as a friend with no ulterior motives. Last year, my 57th birthday was the turning point that changed my life. This year, my 58th birthday will be a celebration of everything I have built since. Yesterday afternoon, while watering the plants on my balcony, plants I chose, that I care for, that bloom for my personal enjoyment, I realized something extraordinary. I am happy, not the conditional happiness that depended on others validating me, but a solid happiness, built on a foundation of self-respect and self-acceptance. A happiness no one can take from me because no one gave it to me. Tonight, before getting into my bed with sheets I chose because I like them and not because they match some family decor, I'll write in the journal I started 3 months ago. Dear Carol, today marks 6 months since you made the best decision of your life, the decision to choose yourself, the decision to believe you deserve love, respect, and happiness, the decision to understand that it is never too late to start over. You have proven that a 57-year-old woman can completely reinvent herself. You have proven that self-love is not selfishness, but emotional survival. You have proven that true strength isn't in enduring everything, but in knowing when to say, enough. Tomorrow will be a new day, full of possibilities that you will choose. And that, dear Carol, is the most beautiful gift you could have ever given yourself. As I close the journal, I look at myself in the vanity mirror by the window. I see wrinkles that tell stories of worry, but I also see eyes that shine with a light that had been out for too long. I see a woman who is finally living her own life, and I feel deeply proud of her. Before turning off the light, I have one last thought. If you, listening to this, have identified with my story, if you have recognized something of your own experience in my words, I want to ask you something. When was the last time you did something just for you, without justifying it to anyone? Think about it. And then, please, share in the comments if you've also lived through something similar, or if you know someone who has been in this situation. Your story could be the push someone else needs to make their own decision to choose themselves. If this story touched your heart, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel, because these stories need to reach the people who need to hear them most. The women who believe it's too late to change. The mothers who have forgotten they are also people. All those who need to be reminded that it is never, ever too late to start living the life you deserve.